Hey everyone, Marcus Philly here, and I've got one important question for you. How do you know that your fitness program is getting you stronger and more fit? If you're used to testing for 1-rep maxes and doing time trials, then the answer to that might seem relatively simple. But these tests don't always apply at different phases of your life as an athlete. My FBB Online Persist training program is about to go through a benchmark week, so I thought this was a perfect time to talk about why it's important to test yourself in your fitness even if you're not a competitive athlete. We're going to look at how to approach tests physically and mentally and use the results to make the most out of your training to come. So stick around, I'm going to show you some of the benchmarks right from the Persist program. I'm going to show you some scaling options for you so that you can get the right dose from them. Let's get after it. A lot of people came to functional bodybuilding because they were just burned out on high intensity fitness and competition, and their bodies were just saying no more. In fact, going to a functional fitness class every single day can feel like a test, especially when you're doing everything at max effort for time. So one of the key points of functional bodybuilding was that we wanted to slow things down for you so that every day you could train versus feeling like every day was a test. We do this by implementing tempos, control points, and a variety of other methods to make sure that we have control over the intensity and the output every day in the gym. My goal is to have you leave the gym feeling like you've got energy to tackle the rest of your day, rather than leaving the gym feeling wiped out and you need a nap and you can't function in the parts of your life that you're most excited about. But testing is different. And so where does testing fit into all of this? Well, within functional bodybuilding, we periodically test because we want to measure your ceiling. We want to challenge your limits. We want to know what you're capable of. And we do it thoughtfully. We place it at the end of a particular training build so that you're prepared for it. And then we make sure to give you time afterwards to deload so that you can get ready for the next training cycle ahead. And in functional bodybuilding, we take care to test a wide variety of fitness traits so that you can learn a lot about yourself. Rather than going in and feeling like the only test is how much pain can you endure, we're going to look at qualitative and quantitative measurements of strength, endurance, anaerobic, aerobic, skills, etc., so that you can really understand what am I good at, where are my opportunities to grow. So why are fitness tests even good in the first place? Well, I've learned that benchmarks force you to get uncomfortable. They force you outside of your comfort zone, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. Most of us spend a great deal of time well within our comfort zone in life, which is fine, but periodically getting outside of that, moving into discomfort, is an opportunity for you to grow as a person. People have said I'm crazy in the past for pushing my body to the limits that I have, to which I say, I'm choosing to do something that I know others won't. That to me is a major mental and physical edge that I have in life. I try and remind myself that effort is a choice, that we don't have to do it, but the more we move towards it, the more we separate ourselves from others. At the same time, I know that cherry-picking workouts is also a good thing too. Sticking inside of your comfort zones for the majority of the time helps you stay consistent, helps you avoid burnout, helps you stay on track. But periodically, we need to choose the hard thing. We need to step outside of that comfort zone, and we need to move towards the thing that most people are avoiding. By choosing the hard route, we can become more resilient to the challenges that life will throw at us. Another great reason to test and do benchmarks is to find out if all the hard work that you've been doing in the gym is paying off and moving you closer to your goals. Are you seeing measurable results in the direction that you want them to go, or is it time to course correct? If you're going to give effort, you want to know that you're on the right track so that you're not wasting your time. When we know where our limits are, then it's going to help us actually train better in the future. When we know what 100% feels like, then when the workout calls for dialing back to 80% in training in the weeks to come, you have a better gauge of where that is. Also, if you know what you can lift for 10 repetitions at a maximum weight, then you know how to dial that back for training so that you can focus on technique, so that you can focus on range of motion, mobility, and building better connective tissue underneath rather than shooting for top loads every day in your training. So if you don't have a structured testing approach like this, you might never figure out these things about yourself, which is going to teach you information as an athlete about yourself, but also how you approach hard things in life. All right, it's time to set some expectations and figure out how to handle your negative self-talk that's coming, right? Because every test that you do inside of the gym, whether it be a competition or just a benchmark test, can create and provoke anxiety. You can start to ask yourself a bunch of questions. Wow, how uncomfortable is this going to be? Am I going to be safe? Am I putting myself at risk? What if I don't do as well as I thought I was going to do? Is this test just going to confirm just how bad I think I really am? I think it's really important to have these questions come up periodically. If we actually tune into those questions and we listen, we can find out, well, wow, this is where my insecurities lie. This is what I put attention to. And perhaps we can develop tools in this process to get ourselves out of this negative pattern of self-thinking or self-talk, remove some of this anxiety, and actually put that energy towards something much more positive. Maybe you're coming into benchmark week with not a worry or a care or a fear or a bit of anxiety in your entire body, and that's okay too. Typically, that just means that you're not too attached and you don't care too much about the outcomes, and it's not something that you should be judging in yourself. It's just one way to approach things. But if you are nervous and you do have a lot of anxiety, and you start to feel that inside of you physically, just know that those are your hormones, those are the stress responses inside of you that are getting you prepared for something that's coming. Really finding this balance between owning the anxiety and the nervousness because it's preparing your body, but also being completely open to whatever the outcomes might be at the end of the week of testing, that is the sweet spot to be heading into a benchmark week. So should you expect to PR during a benchmark week? I don't know. You have the answers to that. You know how consistent you've been with your training, how consistent you've been with your sleep, your nutrition, your hydration, your recovery practices. Those factors not only are going to impact how well this benchmark week goes for you, but they're also really important factors to long-term health and wellness in your training journey ahead. So be honest with yourself and look at what you've been doing leading up to this. That can be a sign of where you have opportunity to grow headed forward. How can you learn from the results for even better training moving forward? It's important not to miss the opportunity to reflect on the actual outcomes of your benchmark week right after they happen. This is where all the learning is going to happen, and it's actually more important than the results themselves. So be sure to look at both what went well and what didn't go well after you're done. I think it's really important and vital to keep an eye on both the objective and the subjective data that comes out of this. Let's say your numbers didn't go up, but you felt stronger in the bottom position. You felt less pain in your lift. Maybe you controlled your breathing a bit better and you were less panicky in a conditioning workout. Those feelings that you have inside are evidence that you're actually improving or you're gaining some control over your fitness. There's almost always going to be some negative self-talk that happens as well. Like, man, did I only get that much faster? Or that should have been heavier on that lift. Or, man, that was better, but I'm still the weakest in the room. I want you to take a moment to reflect on those internal dialogues that you're having. Think about what's serving you about that, what's not. What would you like to change in the future about how you talk to yourself after testing or during training? And what about if you just don't test well? Well, performance anxiety is a real thing, and sometimes you just don't bring your best effort to testing weeks or benchmarks. That's okay. The stimulus from the benchmark and the hormonal adaptations, the stress level of doing something very difficult can still be very valuable for your training. It fits into the periodization model. And for people that fall into that category of I don't test well, what I've seen very many times in the past is that the benchmark week happens, they come back into training, they're more relaxed, and they've had this hit of adrenaline and cortisol, and the next training cycle they set PRs when they weren't expecting it. So hang in there and know that it's okay if you don't test well. Testing helps us know where we stand, which can be powerful as we're aging. If we just assume that with age, we are going to experience a rapid decline in strength and fitness, but we have no measurable way of actually tracking that, then we might be victim to letting that decline happen more rapidly. See, having measurable standards that you can uphold yourself to over time will allow you to know what am I physically capable of and what am I just assuming is going to be lost as a product of age chronologically. Now, while age is going to play a role for many of us over the decades to come, don't just assume that all fitness traits have to decline with every year of your life. Have some standards and some benchmarks to hold yourself accountable to. Next up, we got to make sure you're testing the right things. Every test that you do should have a purpose and a point behind it. There's no reason to be testing something that's way outside of your abilities, nor is there any reason to be testing something that you've never done or you haven't been doing recently in your training, or you're not going to be doing upcoming in your training. There's so many creative ways to test different aspects of your fitness. Let's take strength, for example. In Persist this week, in the benchmark, we're going to be testing 8 repetition maxes instead of 1 repetition maxes in a number of lifts. So for years, I thought the 1 repetition max was the superior method for testing strength in fitness. As I've gotten older and more wise, I've come to realize that there's a broad spectrum of strength that we're training, and testing across that broad spectrum of strength is super important. Plus, the 1 repetition max may not be applicable to many of the clients that I'm serving, and it also has its drawbacks and limitations relevant to injury possibilities or lack of carryover to someone's actual life. More and more, I'm helping people develop strength across these big repetition ranges because there's a safety aspect to it that's improved. Plus, it has more application to what people are actually trying to apply strength to in their lives. So just like strength, we have the analog for conditioning, the 1 rep max for strength and the lactic acid bath in conditioning. Not all of your conditioning benchmarks should be like that. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to show you right now a Persist benchmark called wobbly legs, where there were some very intentional movements that were put into this to test skill, to test single leg strength endurance, muscle endurance, as well as your aerobic capacity across a 8 to 12 minute time domain. So as you can see, the workout has double unders, kettlebell rack walking lunges, and rowing. The challenging load position, the kettlebell rack position for this single leg exercise is actually a reflection of what the training has looked like for weeks and months leading up to this particular week. So we're trying to take what the Persist program has been doing and then provide them a challenge, a test with a bigger intensity push this week. We've also trained plenty of double unders, only now in this benchmark test, we're going to challenge your skill in the double under by making you have to perform them on fatigued hips from the walking lunges, as well as an elevated respiratory rate from the rowing machine. And with a time domain of 8 to 12 minutes for this workout to be completed, we're also having other tests during the week that are going to have a similar time domain, but they're going to test different skills and have different combinations of movements. So we're going to be able to look at the end of the week at our results and see, gosh, for an 8 to 12 minute workout, which skills gave me the hardest time? And so under aerobic stress or aerobic fatigue, what do I have an opportunity to work on in the future? Now, our Persist athletes have all different fitness levels, from very advanced to relatively new to fitness. And as I said before, it doesn't make sense to go do a test that's way outside of your ability level. So if you're looking at this particular workout, wobbly legs, and you're thinking, man, I can't do the repetitions as prescribed, or those weights are pretty heavy, then know that there's always a way to scale and regress tests as well to get the right stimulus out of it. You could change the movement pattern from a kettlebell rack walking lunge to a dumbbell suitcase reverse lunge or a body weight reverse lunge. You could take something as skilled as a double under and move it into the single under category, which is a bit easier to accomplish. And you could always change the repetition numbers here as well. That's why we provide time domain ranges for what you're aiming for. And also we encourage you to just be honest with yourself. Hey, where's my skill level at? What's going to give me a chance to go into this to feel confident so that I can push myself and get that intensity dose that I'm looking for in a benchmark week. So some of my final thoughts are coming from my experience going through the benchmark week myself. So I did this last week in preparation for giving it to you all out there in the Persist program and for all of you watching. I went into it with the expectation of, gosh, this is going to be really hard. I haven't actually done a full evaluation or assessment week like this in probably years. I was definitely scared, and I had a feeling that I wasn't going to tolerate a lot of the heavy lifting very well. What I came to find out after the process was over was it was hard, and it was definitely a challenging week, maybe one of the most challenging weeks of fitness I've had in quite some time. But I got through it. And even on the last day, on Saturday, I still found a little bit of energy inside myself to push hard and to get some pretty good results. I did learn that I have definitely prioritized my aerobic capacity and my ability to move in these mixed modal conditioning workouts that you're going to see in the benchmark week. And I have not prioritized lifting maximally for strength. some of my strength numbers have definitely dropped. And what was interesting to me was that I have been shying away from lifting heavy because I've been nervous about getting injured or about having a setback in my body. And what I realize is that I do like to put myself in positions to lift heavy weight. It feels good for me and it builds my self-confidence. And if I need to put more energy and time towards my self-care, to my mobility, to my positions, so that when I go and lift heavy, I actually can be safe, then that's something I want to put some time and energy towards in the weeks, months, and probably year to come. So my big takeaway was, if I want to get back to lifting heavy, I have to do some more work. I have to be accountable to myself to get better range and to own my positions better so that when I do heavy deadlifts or I do heavy squats, I don't have to worry about getting myself into a bad position and tweaking something. And then the other thing I walked away with was, I can push myself a little bit more. My body's resilient, and because I live a good lifestyle and because I eat well and because I prioritize my sleep more and more, I can handle a little bit more than maybe I think. And lastly, I love aerobic conditioning. It's my jam. So in the Persist Benchmark Week that's coming up, you still have time to get in if you're watching this as this video is being released. I encourage you to go down to the description below, click the link, get into the 2-week free trial of Persist. And when you do the Benchmark Week coming up, I've posted all my times and all my weights on everything. So if you want to come challenge me in your fitness, please do. I welcome it. Good luck. Hope you enjoyed this video.